How y'all doing? For this book review, I'm going to go over Book 3 of the Tribe of One Trilogy by Simon Hawke, the Nomad, set in the Dungeons & Dragons campaign world of Dark Sun. Alright, to continue from the second novel left off, Sorak and his companion Ryana, and also the temporary companion Karana, they finally reach Nibenay, and after all the trouble that they've gone in the last book, they find the Veil Alliance. Karana is now joining them to help with the cause and learned her abilities as a preserver, which is against her father, who is the Sorcerer King of Nibenay. And now they were given. Now they are going to go to the city of Bodach. Apparently, there's a treasure there of an enchanted armor that also needs to be found and given to the sage. In order for the sage to advance, whatever he uses. I think it's probably to advance his abilities. You never know, but it's one of the things Sorak has to do in order to find the sage and hopefully gain the knowledge of his past to him. So, him and Ryana are off towards that area. They have to travel more desert, of course. It's Dark Sun. It's mostly desert. But Nibenay, the Sorcerer King of the city that is named after him, he finds out about Sorak and all the trouble he's caused. He's caused quite a bit of damage in the last book. And now but he also has found a connection between Sorak and the sage that he's looking for, and that's information that Nibenay wants, because Sorcerer Kings cannot have an Avagian who could go up against them. So he hires somebody. He sends one of his Templar wives out to find him, and and there's a guy named Vasalis. He's a very gruff man, very experienced fighter, highly intelligent, and absolutely fearless, and has no empathy for anyone. So he just lives for himself. But his abilities, Nibenay has relied upon in the past, and he needs him now to find Sorak. To follow him and hopefully gain information about the sage. So he can't just simply go out and kill him for what he did. No, he needs to follow him and do whatever he can to find to find out this information. Now, Sorak is now being sent to Bodach to find his enchanted armor, and Nibenay also knows about this, although he doesn't know everything about it. So he probably needs that armor as well, and needs Vasalis to try and get that, and follow Sorak to wherever the sage is. So, kind of a bit of a challenge. Vasalis is given a ring, to put on his finger, and that will allow Nibenay to communicate with him and allow him to help wherever he can, if so needed. So now the race is on. Alright, so Ryana and Sorak are now traveling through the desert of Bodach, but they have to go through they have to stop somewhere called Salt View, if I recall. Let me take a look at the map. Yep. Yeah, Salt View. And this supposedly this village, set in the middle of nowhere, there is a person there, called the Silent One. And the Silent One is rumored to be the only person to go to the city of Bodach and came back alive. Bodach is a city and fortress that's out near the Silt Sea, and the thing is, it's completely dead there. Both literally and figuratively. In the daytime, there's no one there. It's completely abandoned until night falls, and then the undead rise and wreak havoc to any living that happens to be there. So they got a challenge for them. Hopefully, with the help of the Silent One in the city of Saltview, or village of Saltview, should I say. Now, they may have a chance of going there, getting the armor, and finding the sage, and hopefully Sorak will find his past. Alright, so the race is on. Sorak and Ryana get ambushed by bandits. They leave him. They thought they killed Sorak. They take Ryana, and now she's captured by them. But the thing is, that's when Sorak meets a guy who helps him out, and ends up being Vasalis. Vasalis gives him he says just a normal traveler, and he's trying, he just figures to help him out, and he helps Sorak, rescues Ryana, and they find their way to Salt View. And Salt View is interesting because it is a small village in the middle of nowhere, but all the pleasures and delights are available to anyone who has the time and money. This is practically Dark Sun's equivalent of Las Vegas. So they go in there and they spend the night. After they've conquered the marauders, they've taken what money they have. They also sell whatever items they can get, and they use that to get a hotel. And Vasalis is trying to trying to keep himself, that he's just a regular guy that's helping him out, but Sorak is finding out, and they both him and Ryana suspected there's more to this guy the way he seems, and probably in league with people who maybe go against him. So eventually, Sorak and Ryana find the Silent One, who ends up being another Pyrene, and she's going to help them to go to Bodach and find the armor and find the sage. But figuring out who Vasalis was, they're trying to do it before he knows about it. So they sneak off, and they find a way to if you go for a quick way, which I won't discuss the plans here on how to get to the city. Vasalis finds out he's been found out, so he calls Nibenay, and Nibenay gives him assistance there. So they go to the city of Bodach, and they try to hurry to find the treasure in the armor, which they did, and they also, unfortunately, nighttime comes early, and so the undead rises, and Vasalis catches them. So, all this, hopefully, going through these obstacles, I will say this, that he does eventually find a sage, and the question is, these items that they got for him, was it all worth it? Will Sorak know about his past and what cost? And, what can the sage do for him? And who is the sage? Where does he come from? That's also explained, about his origins. So I may give up the majority of the book, summed it up, but hopefully you enjoy the details if you ever pick up this book. So now that I've went through all books, what do I think? Well, I actually enjoyed this. I mean, it's a good series of books that's set in, well, not the best written ones. That's something about the writing style. I don't know if I can articulate that, but I'll try and see if I can. The writing style is not what I expect. When you look at artwork by Brahm and the other Dark Sun art, you kind of expect it to... Maybe I got so used to other writers who wrote Savage Worlds, of Sword and Sorcery and what have you. Carl E. Wagner, Robert E. Howard, and such. The people interact with each other the way how role players, have a typical adventure and so forth. At least what is usually presented as typical role players in the world, but still not bad. I mean, Sorak himself is a very interesting character because he's one character, but he's actually multiple characters. He has all his personalities and so forth, and they all have their roles and their usefulness. He's also a good, noble character, which is not something you normally expect in the world of Dark Sun. You kind of expect, there's some noble people about that, but no one as good in nature as Sorak, especially coming from a heritage that was built as cannibals. Not cannibals, but actually some cannibalism, especially among the halfling side, but they're carnivorous. But Sorak is raised to be a vegetarian, which kind of leads to problems because while Sorak himself has been raised a vegetarian and will not drink alcohol, he drinks water, or he eats vegetables, his personality is like, we crave meat. So how do they solve this? Well, Sorak can duck under, so to speak, go and rest, while the ranger will go out in the woods and find meat, and he'll eat, and by him hunting down and eating the meat, the tribe can enjoy the meat while Sorak is asleep. So, also another thing about Sorak is that he's a bit overpowered. I think a lot of people will agree who are into the gaming, this character is overpowered for someone just starting off in the world. He's got all these personalities with all these abilities. He's already a good fighter. He's a powerful psionicist. He's got an enchanted blade that can cut through anything. If this was given in a game at first, he'd be overpowered. But don't worry, that actually kind of goes away at the end of this trilogy. So, and as long as, at least it's not not a game itself, so you could do that in stories. Going back to his personalities, and Sorak can sleep per se and rest without knowing what the other personalities are doing when they are in control of his body, kind of leads to a little blocking the plot there, so to speak. I forget the word, a plot hole, because one of the reason why Sorak can't consummate his love for Ryana was that the other personalities, being some of the female personalities just can't bring themselves to love another woman like that physically. They have no problem with Ryana, but they can't bring themselves to that. But Sorak can just duck down and rest and not be aware of what the others were doing to his body as he was resting. And so at first I thought, okay, maybe that's just something Sorak can do, but the others, the others tried that. They would not be, they can't, they can't turn away or rest per se, and while Sorak is by himself per se to consummate that. But that's not true, because one of the characters, one of their personalities, Kravana, she complains that, hey, I'm trying to rest here during an argument the other person doesn't have each other. So I don't know if that was just simply thought through, or maybe there's a weird exception, but it never really explored why that detail is. But another thing about this is that in the City of Saltview, one of the casinos, this is where the book gets a little meta, since this is a series of books that takes place in a world that's played as a tabletop role-playing game. There's a scene in the casino where people are putting in bets to play a game where they take on roles of characters exploring the city of Bodach, which is where the characters in the book are trying to explore in their reality. They're playing a tabletop role-playing game in the novel. It's kind of interesting, but they do explain how they came about. But I think the author was just having a little fun there, a little humor, and so forth. Another thing about this, and while this is not necessarily for you to have, throughout the trilogy, they mention a book called The Wanderer's Journal, which in the world of Dark Sun's a book that talks about everything there is to know about the known area of Athos that you role-play in the game. And the Wanderer's Journal tells about locations, species, and the dangers, and all the city-states, and talks about the Sorcerer Kings. Well, here's the thing: the Wanderer's Journal is a book you get if you grab the basic box set of the Dark Sun one. It's all fluff, but it's this wonderful book that really helps immerse. Talks about all much of the locations. Talks about the creatures, plants, the city-states, what's it all like. And they mention this book multiple times, and they want, because the Wanderer is not known who his identity is. And in this trilogy, you do find out who the Wanderer is and how he's connected to the Sage. So, so going back to the role-playing game itself and the novels, I noticed a lot of these things. Like, I read the Dragon King's book, like what all requires for you to be an avid GN, and I think they either ignored certain things just for the sake of telling a story, or maybe this was changed in other editions, when they restricted this, because just saying that elves, like in the Dark Sun role-playing game mechanics, only humans can become Avigenians. Where in this one it mentions that because a little bit of explorer, remind you, it's an elf. So it's not a big deal, I think. And I've noticed that when it comes to books that are derived from tabletop role-playing games, Dragonlance, Forgotten Realms, it's hard to be strict on the game rules, on the mechanics, just to restrict your story. They do it. It can often, but I don't think it should be strict on. I don't know. I have a hard time trying to articulate this. You can't. It shouldn't be. Storytelling should not be restricted on mechanics. And mechanics are I think people are kind of going backwards on this. Dungeons and Dragons is kind of made because before it was made, if you liked fantasy, you usually had to read about it. So you read about these characters going on these high-end adventures, like Robbery Howard or Lord of the Rings. And the mechanics of a game allows you to play, and have it organized to where you can solve a bunch of problems, fighting, puzzles, what have you, magic, obstacles. But I found it may be just me, and maybe you could say this better, or something something else you've noticed about it. When these novels are written after the games, they almost restrict themselves by trying to match the mechanics of the games, and not always, but you may notice some scenes when you read books like these, But in this one, it kind of breaks a few of them, so it's not, I'm okay with that just for the sake of telling the story. So they may have changed that restriction in this older edition when they revised it, and obviously more likely when they went to 5th edition, which takes place way after this. This was done back in the early mid-90s as trilogy, and the 5th edition was just a few years ago. So there you go. Well, that does it. The Tribe of One trilogy set in the Dark Sun world. the Outcast, the Seeker, and the Nomad. So not a bad trilogy for what it is. I enjoyed the characters. While I think, oh, another thing, if this book was done, one of the flaws about this, not necessarily flaws, it's kind of done like old-fashioned comic books, in that when you get to the second book, they have to retell everything in the previous book. Like if you haven't got this book, but then you started on here, you didn't even realize it was a second book, or you just started off just because it was interesting. It's fine where they say, okay, this character who's done this and this and this, stuff you've already known in the last book. So if you try to read from first, second, third, it kind of repeats itself. If you had revised this and put these all in one novel, you have to try. I would say you could probably revise and cut that down, just so the person reading it all would not have to go through that repeats. I think they added that, well, again, just to keep people who just starts in the middle to keep up. And I noticed that, and some of it, it was just kind of weird that, books didn't even have to be that thick. I think it could have been more straightforward to the point, because each of these are 300 pages, and I think, it just feels like there's maybe a little bit of extra stuff here and there. I know. So there you go. That's the Tribe of One Trilogy. Now check them out if you're into that. Thank you all for watching. You have a nice day.